So I am going to be forced to read rather quickly, so that's what I will do. In my 40-year teaching career, I have been fortunate to have the best students both public and private schools can offer. In teaching U.S. history, it has been my privilege to have as an essential part of that responsibility the study of both the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and the study of public policy and how it is developed. I have also had the experience of working for two assemblymen in formulating legislation and dealing with public issues. I learned that public policy at its best is an objective seeking for facts and practical working solutions and not a slipshod emotional exercise to make people feel good that they're doing something. Before we get to those facts, it's important to drop back and put this whole issue into historical perspective. Our founding fathers had a bit of a conundrum after the Constitution was approved. Should they have a Bill of Rights that enumerated the rights an individual had? If they did that, would that mean that anything not named would no longer be an individual right? However, if they didn't name certain key rights, then an oppressive government might then decide to suffocate individual rights. As the founders believed that the rights listed in the Bill of Rights were God-given natural rights, they found a compromise. They made sure the most important ones were listed and added a Ninth Amendment, which stated that there were other rights as well. This becomes very important in recent history in the landmark Roe v. Wade decision, where the right to privacy, not listed in the Bill of Rights, was used as a pillar of that decision. If you understand this, then the wording that so many people argue over regarding the militia reference becomes really moot. The Second Amendment is an individual right, not a communal right. The Supreme Court has in recent years in the Heller and McDonald cases established that. It is easy to see why. All you need to do is to go to the state constitutions of the states at that time, and the states coming into the Union immediately after that, to read about how a person has the right to self-defense, including his home and family. A person has the right to defend himself, his home, his family, and even his neighbor if the need arises. Any infringement on that is a violation of the intent of our Bill of Rights. But we do have limitations on rights. But the key to remember is that the benefit of the doubt is meant to be in the individual's favor, not the government's. We have slander and libel laws. The Supreme Court has supported the idea that bazookas are out, machine guns are a no-no, and hand grenades are definitely not permitted. However, the court has also said that you have a right to defend yourself with weapons that are generally available to others. That's so you have a fair chance when someone does a home invasion. Some people have gone to extreme lengths by bringing up the argument that the Second Amendment is outmoded because we only had flintlocks back then. The new weapons shouldn't count in that consideration. That's akin to saying, since the founders didn't know about cell phones and the internet, it's okay to violate the Fourth Amendment protections against search and seizure, or restrict our First Amendment rights by censoring TV and radio. Of course they do all that. But that's why all the rights in the Bill of Rights need to be eagerly defended. Government, as our founders well knew, tends towards control and even oppression. Some people snicker at the idea of government oppression if you don't have a gun. There are historical instances throughout the world, but I would remind my fellow Americans of Athens, Tennessee after World War II, where veterans of World War II had to storm a corrupt political machine's building to retrieve the ballot boxes to an election that threatened the corrupt politicians being overthrown. And right up to the days of the Civil Rights Movement, African Americans in many southern states were denied the right to buy or possess a gun, thus making them easy prey to the Klan and others that wished them ill. In the most recent days, in the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy, there were pictures of people defending their homes and neighborhoods with rifles and posting signs that they were quite ready to deal with looters. When normal municipal services are stretched beyond their limits and armed citizenry, which is the real meaning of militia, is vital to maintaining the safety of their neighborhoods. The Second Amendment's underlying concept is that every human being has a right to self-defense against another individual, against a group of individuals, or a government who threatens their lives or their freedoms. Our fellow Americans west of the Delaware River would remind you that they need these weapons, like AR-15s, to save their farmlands, crops, livestock, from everything from groundhogs to coyotes and mountain lions. In cities like Chicago, where violence is disturbingly common, the only people that aren't allowed to get weapons are the innocent victims of many of the crimes. So whether it's Indians or gang members, whether it's a flintlock, a Colt 45, or an AR-15, all common use weapons at one time or another, the individual needs to be able to rely on the Second Amendment, often for his very survival. Survival has been an issue very real for me as a teacher. When I started teaching 40 years ago, we didn't worry about the tragedies that have befallen schools in this country. Just the other day, I was talking with an older colleague, imagine that, who remembered students in New York and New Jersey bringing in their rifles to school for rifle team practice. They carried them on the bus or train and shot at the range at their school. None of these kids committed mass killings. Obviously things have changed, but I don't think it was those rifle kids. I went to the evening on school safety held at Morris County Training Facility. They showed the state of affairs in schools in our areas as regarding how we prepare for tragic events. It evoked the same emotional feeling I had earlier this year when my school, a private yeshiva high school, did a lockdown drill. At the announcement, I locked my door, I shut out the lights, and herded 25 Jewish kids into a corner. While we were waiting in the dark, I could not rid myself of the feeling I was reenacting a scene from Schindler's List. There was something not right about this. I had that same feeling last night at the safety meeting. They kept talking about mitigating the damage. That's a euphemism for trying to reduce the number of dead kids and teachers. We are conceding the entrance to our schools. We are a soft target along with malls, theaters, and churches. We were told that allowing administrators or teachers weapons was not a good idea, and they proceeded to set up a strawman teacher running up and down the hall like an idiot to prove their point. We were told that having an armed security guard had to be a local decision. They didn't even like metal detectors. Generally, the message was, hey, wait for the police. They waited 20 minutes in Connecticut. Over 20,000 schools in this country have armed guards. Schools out west have hundreds of teachers flocking to training classes so they can be of service. Schools in this metropolitan area have them. The poor teachers in Connecticut stood in front of their students, shielding their little children, and both teacher and students were killed. As I stood in that darkened classroom, wondering what I would do if this turned out to be real, a baseball bat? That's it? Well, I was sure as hell try. My 9mm handgun would be a lot more useful, if only just to defend my classroom. Even colleges and universities out west are allowing concealed carry among their students. Putting a sign out that says gun-free school zone is less than useless. Wouldn't a sign that said armed security in school be more of a deterrent? My last area of discussion relates to the sad state of public discourse in the matter of the Second Amendment. The Assembly has passed 20-plus bills in a short time. I read the bills. Not only are there outright lies and or misconceptions in the rationales for some of these bills, but apparently the legislators themselves never took the time to read New Jersey statutes on the matter. Not only that, but not one of them would have prevented what happened in Connecticut. This is, oh, look at me doing something, when in reality, it doesn't solve a thing. It's not restricted to legislators, however. There is willful ignorance on the part of the media who don't even know what an assault weapon is, thus not knowing the difference between an automatic and a semi-automatic weapon. The misleading statistics and myths that are reported are legion. A fellow by the name of Guy Smith has a good free book online at gunfacts.info, I-N-F-O. I have a copy here if somebody wants to see it. That he deals with over 120 myths about the gun issue, showing how purposely misleading much anti-gun propaganda is. Good people get misled. How can you make an informed decision just looking at one side? Since time is limited, I will devote myself to two key items to add to the public information. The first deals with a Star Ledger editorial that is symptomatic of this media's sloppiness in the pursuit of their anti-gun policies. First, let me ask you a question. Teacher, I have props. Okay. Hope you can see this. If you had two students and one had an average in your class of 99.995 and the other had an average of 99.982, and you'd say, thank God, is there any appreciable difference between the two? No. 13 thousandths of 1%. Okay? Got it. Now, the Star Ledger, however, trumpets in a chart and map the clear superiority of the first student over the second by displaying it this way. New Jersey has 5 deaths per 100,000, but the Wild West of Louisiana has 18. A cursory look at this makes it seem like 3 times as many people suffer from gun deaths or injuries than in Louisiana than in New Jersey. And that's how you lie with statistics. Now, there's more. Right under the bold deaths due to injuries by firearms, there is, in smaller and not bold type, in parentheses, the quote, includes crimes, accidental shootings, suicides, acts of self-defense. They throw everything in but the proverbial kitchen sink. And one other thing, I bet you there are more acts of self-defense in Louisiana than in New Jersey. Yes, sir. Now, that's a good thing in my mind. The paper then brings up the 50 caliber sniper rifle myth. Well, go to Smith's site to read about that. They state that a dangerous person can buy a gun in private sale. Well, gee, all we have to do is require reporting forms and background checks for dangerous persons to voluntarily fill out, and we'll solve that problem. They then quoted economist Richard Florida as though he were an objective scientist. I took the time to read his studies on factors for state crime. He ignores gangs, which is a huge factor, which I'm not sure we're discussing tonight, which is a shame. But he takes the time to show that states that voted for Obama have less gun violence than states that voted for McCain. So his objectivity is suspect anyhow. They don't mention any of Dr. John Lott's studies or book that demonstrate that concealed carry laws prevent a good deal of violence, and areas like gun-free zones are where the slaughters generally happen. The fellow who killed those people in the movie theater avoided the one nearest his home and 6 theaters that allowed concealed carry, and he went to the one that was gun-free. I read a handout from an anti-gun group, yes, I read those sites too, that claimed Dr. Lott was debunked. So I researched that. I even wrote to Dr. Lott in reply. Dr. Lott's work has been peer-reviewed and supported, but the Star Ledger has no interest in bringing up competing editorials, just in promoting their point of view. Dr. Lott also eviscerated the much ballyhooed Mayors Against Illegal Gun report. Lots of sloppy work there too, but a lot of great public relations for the mayors. No offense. I have spent a lot of time double-checking statistics that seem to agree with my conclusions. One of the more curious ones is a part of the conversation that is left out of too many gun discussions. It goes right back to what I started with, self-defense. We know about 10 to 12,000 people a year are killed by firearms for reasons other than suicide, because suicide still makes up the majority of gun cases. Now, in public policy investigations, you have to look at a cost-benefit analysis. We're not talking about dollars here. The question that is really brought up is how many times does a person with a firearm save his or her own life or prevent serious injury by criminals? I have seen estimates that go from, on an annual basis, from 2.5 million to 800,000 on one end, and to over 100,000 from the most anti-gun group site I could find. The reporting is often underreported because sometimes just showing a weapon or making that ominous loading sound with a 12-gauge shotgun is enough, and that incident doesn't make a police report. At the lowest estimate, it's a 10-to-1 ratio in favor of the good uses for the gun. And if you believe the upper end, it's 80-to-1. Now, I have over 400 cited incidents in my files right here, and you can look at them later, of these acts of self-defense. Who are these people? It's a father protecting his daughter, a mom protecting her children, a woman defending herself from an estranged husband, a homeowner stopping 3 burglars, a young woman preventing a rape, a man defending his wife and son from a home invasion, an elderly wheelchair-bound man, an 87-year-old woman defending against a home invasion, a man coming to his neighbor's rescue, a man preventing a dog attack, a 91-year-old man defending his wife and self at home. It goes on and on. Having a gun in your hands does not turn you into Frodo in The Lord of the Rings, where the evil ring overcomes your better nature. There are 65 million legal gun owners in America, and they own about 300 million guns. Yet these are law-abiding citizens who, because of their familiarity with these weapons, are outraged by the encroachment of others on their freedoms. Many of these people are open to practical, workable suggestions, but they are frustrated by the ignorance about guns, their useful functions, and even how they work with the gun owners who wish to take their rights away. Any restrictions on our fundamental rights need to be a joint decision, not the tyranny of one group exercising its power over another.